Yo, K-Mo Cuss is in the building. What's up, y'all? Basically, I'm here today to kind of put you together on how I do a fade with the design. I already did part of the design, which was like the rough draft aspect. And the reason why I did that is because a lot of times with a lot of people, they want to know how to make better designs, but they don't really ever touch up their design. So then they wonder why they keep struggling with their designs. And a lot of times it's just that you got to touch up your work. Starting here first, I'm starting with the fade. Of course, I've already created a guideline and I'm going into that. Basically, my steps is the three steps, which is closed, open, halfway, and then opened all the way. And a little bit in between. I mean, of course, you're going to, touch it up to your liking, but you want it to be as blurry as possible. And then we climb up to the 16th open. And then after we climb up to the 16th open, we gradually go down, so down fading. So you'll see me go through those processes. What I'm doing right now, those are the um, Slimline Pros in my hand, and I'm touching up the bottom. A lot of times people don't understand that the baldness of it, the more you touch it up, the more that you take the time out to really create that separation and really touch the bottom of your fades and make it balder and balder. Even getting out your shavers will help your design, I mean not your design, but your fade to really stand out and look well. So you want those blurry fades, and you create those blurry fades by really taking care of each spot. It's like the bricklayer, a bricklayer is not looking at the entire wall. The bricklayer would pay attention to each brick and say, I have to lay that brick very well each time, and I have to make sure it's straight. That's kind of how it is with a fade. So each step you have to really pay close attention to. Make sure you don't have any lines. So if you put a line in, you want to take it out with something that's going to get it to that level. So sometimes you have to follow back up with your liners in order to really get that fade line out, or else your client will walk out and it'll be that fade line that everybody's laughing at, or everybody points out to them that they got messed up for, and it's something that's very subtle to you. But the difference between good and great is always in the little things, so it's important to pay attention to those little things. My client here, just to talk about him for a second, man, he's a great kid. He has a brother, and they're always joking around and playing, and they just always brighten my day. It's always good to have good clients that believe in you and want you to try new things. Now I got out my Supras. It's kind of cool to have a cordless detachable blade. I love them. The only thing about them is they can get hot if you run them on that 5 speed, that 5th speed or whatnot. But outside of that, it doesn't really have any flaws about it other than the heat thing, and that's not often. I mean, as long as you're not just jamming away on the 5th level the whole time, they do a relatively good job. What I'm doing right now is a lot of times I'll start with my design. I'll cut that maybe to that may be a 1.5, and then I will follow up the rest of the cut at cutting it at like a 1 even, or 1A or something like that. But those slight subtle changes really make your design stand out at the very end, because it gives you an opportunity to have like different colors to deal with. As you can see, the top of his hair appears to be one color. Although all his hair is the same color, the thickness of it really does play a factor in the visual effect. So it seems like really right now you have 3 different colors if you really look at it. You have the light black at the top, then you have the dark black, then you have his skin tone. So really what that has done is it's helped me to create a more three-dimensional design, although it's not a 3D design per se. Although to me it has some 3D elements to it, which I try to add into mine to make it pop, but it's not just 3D per se, because it does other things as well. So what I'm doing right now is just kind of lightening up certain spots to kind of, because I have a fade going around the entire head, and that's something that you want to keep in mind when you on the other side where the design is, you forget that this is supposed to be a fade. So although my design is in there and I want it to have thickness in certain spots, you also want to have some spots where you show that this is the consistency of the cut, which is a fade. So doing what I'm doing right now is basically taking down more of the bulk and creating a separation from the design into the fade. So that helps just for, like I say, for cosmetic purposes. People notice those little details. Even if they don't know why they notice it, they notice it. So it's very important to do those things. So right now we're going to kick off into the line. Of course, you want to start in the center. Some people start on the side. I mean, it's all depends on what your flavor is. At the end of the day, you want to get that straight line. If you start on the side, I would suggest to start on the higher side than starting on the lower side, because you can always, if you start on the higher side, kind of even everything out. But if you do it the other way, it doesn't work so well. So the main thing with the line is making sure that you don't push anybody back, which that happens a lot for a lot of people because they're trying to create this crispy line in one stroke. My suggestion is, just like you would get told doing an essay or something like that, you always want a rough draft. So do the rough draft. It gives you room for improvement. It gives you room to work with. If you try to create the perfect line every time straight through, you don't give yourself wiggle room. Just going through and touching your line more than once helps you to really define the line. And honestly, the trimmers don't do a perfect job trying to do it all at once, because you'll get tired of it. But if you do it a little bit at a time, you'll notice that each time you do it, it's like your line starts to pop. Once again, I created my line and I already did the fade, but the thing that you'll learn in barbering is once you slap the line on there, you can really see the fade better. So any imperfection that I have, I'm going to double check it after I do my line. Sometimes I even do the line first, but I'll be honest with you all, I like to see the line come in after I do the fade. Like, it's something about that, like the crispness of it, just really, putting the line on there after you faded it, that has a feel to it that I really love. So it's just a habit, but honestly, lining it first really makes a lot of sense as far as time is concerned, just because if you line it first, you don't have to go back and line it again, even though you really would go back and line it again, because that's how you really create tight lines. You're not going to have tight lines by doing it once. It's not going to happen. Or it might happen and I don't know anything about it. Leave that in the comments. Right now what I'm doing is just creating some, like in hoops, I found that putting a little fade on there usually tends to bring out your cut a little bit more. Just creates a little bit of difference in the cut. Like sometimes, like it'll all be dark, and if you just leave it all dark, then it just kind of looks plain Jane. So adding fades in there in special places and stuff like that really helps to create a difference in your cuts and makes you stand out against the rest. So that's always important. What I'm doing right now is I think, sometimes people don't realize, but just going over your work again really helps to bring it out. Sometimes I do the rough draft even on cutting the hair out. So what I was doing is I seen little spots while I was doing another part of the head, and I decided to go back and touch those up. I find that sometimes when you're doing a haircut, if you focus in on one thing for too long, you'll kind of get a fatigue where you'll not even see things that are very obvious. And I see that in a lot of people's cuts. Like, they'll take a picture of it and post it and be like, well, what can I work on? I think I should have worked on this, this, and this. Well, that's probably right. And that comes from, fatigue, just looking at something over and over again, and so much that you miss something that's right there in your face. It's hiding in plain sight. So it's important to look at other things or try other stuff if you start to feel like, I don't really see it anymore. Well, move on to the next part of the haircut and come back to that. What I just did was just touched up the fade a little bit. Since I put the part in there, that really helped to kind of bring the part out. But if I was to fade over it first, then when I put the line in, the line won't show up as much. But if I fade under that line, it really brings that line out. And also remember, there's two lines to any line. when you're putting it apart. So you want to touch the top and the bottom part. And when you get towards the end of it, the part that's skinnier, and remember that there's a contour to that. Like, it's fat in the beginning and then it gets skinny. Like, lines shouldn't be just straight bulk or straight lines. You want them to have that flare, depending on the design you're trying to do or the part that you're trying to achieve. In this particular part, I definitely wanted to get skinny at the very end. So at the very end, I may not touch on both sides as much, but the key to that is really using the corners of your blade. The corners of your blade are always the sharpest, and they're going to help you to create consistent lines. What we're doing right now is the fade. Sorry about that. We're also shaving right now. We're doing the razor. And I didn't use any shave gel or anything like that. He is a young man, and I still don't need any shave gel because I know how to really glide that blade. There's a few techniques that I have that I utilize that really help with making sure that when you use that razor, you're not hurting anybody, but you're still achieving what you're trying to achieve. So keep that in mind. Right now, I'm just putting on the finishing touches, looking at things, surveying, and that's always key. I mean, I can't tell you how much just looking over your work can really help you. Putting a razor to your work can really help you. And you don't have to put the razor on everything. And it's also good to use water if you feel like the hair is kind of hard to come off, but you can gauge that from client to client. Some clients, a razor will irritate them if you don't use any type of water or anything to kind of lubricate. But for most clients, you can dry shave with no problem. But if there is an issue, be sure to use some type of lubrication. Just right now, what I'm doing is just touching up the design and adding some things. I probably should have showed you all everything, but you'll see it at the end, the little touches I did. And the key is, with every fade, is just to be creative. There's really no true definition to right or wrong. You just want to have differences. I try to create a little bit of a 3D effect in there. Which really makes it stand out. But I like to do these side designs just because there's really no wrong answer other than not putting the effort in and not crisping up your lines and making sure that your lines are as crisp as they should be. But there's no wrong answer. But this is KMO Cuts. Appreciate you all coming out, looking at what I do. Make sure you subscribe and check me out. Expect more tutorials from me. This is a Realionaire Barber experience. Realionaire barbering is just basically being real. It ain't always about the money. It's about being real and helping people and bringing barber love. You know what I mean? So, KMO signing out. Make sure you subscribe and check me out.